So for manuia whatalo whaatu ma o whaatu i ate o tau uma le mate mai i le tatou Breaking Waves. Talo falava and welcome back to another episode. We're here in the beautiful United States of America in Colorado, and I have a very, very special guest today. I'm joined today by Dr. Siona Motufau, who's the owner and founder of Ohana Dental Implant Center. Greetings, Talo falava. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. How has your morning been?
It's been good. Yeah, it's good morning. Good to be here. Yeah, slightly nervous. I haven't done an interview like this, so this will be fun.
That's okay. That's all right. Just treat it as like a normal conversation.
Okay.
But thank you so much for your time this morning and for your resources to help us shoot this episode. We really appreciate it. But tell us about yourself and your upbringing.
So I'm Siona Motufau. I was born in Coquila on our way to America, and so my father came here. He came here and he worked, and then he brought the rest of our family. I had at that time we had 6 siblings already from Upolu, and then we were traveling, and my mom was pregnant with me in Coquila. Then I was born there, and then we came here after. But we grew up in in Compton, California. So if people are familiar with that, and so that was kind of where my father landed, and we can afford housing at the time, and so grew up in a Mormon household, and so my parents were always big on just going to church. But then and then my father was a contractor, and so we all worked in construction. We worked in construction. My older brothers didn't finish school, probably like in junior high, and then they were really working for my dad, so they can we can make a living. We had a lot of kids, and so and that's kind of that was my upbringing. And so luckily I fell right. I was young enough to where I didn't contribute a lot to the workforce. So my job was to do well in school, right? To make sure I stay in school and have get the grades, so I can pursue this education side of things. Why our family came to America, and so so that's kind of where as far as we're 7 boys. We have 4 girls.
Huge family.
My sisters are kind of run the family.
Run the show.
They kind of tell us what to do, and we we just we kind of just follow their game. And but other what else can we I guess my childhood just kind of just growing up was working with dad on the construction site, just contributing to the family. I think when I was that's kind of how we all grew up. Matter of fact, my wife will tell you that when we got married, that was probably the first time I took my paycheck, and I actually took a paycheck home. Now it was going to my to me and my wife, but everything I got growing up went to my mom, and it was used to whatever she needed to do for the family.
Help the family,
right? And so that's kind of just contributing to making sure that that the family was taken care of.
Yeah,
right? So
that's very interesting. Especially the migration journey, which is a very common story with Pacific Islanders, And tell us about your dad's journey in there. I'm sure you shared a lot of memories with him, with how he's migrated and how he's helped people to come to America. And it's not easy.
Mhm.
And it's never easy, whether you're moving to New Zealand, Australia, especially from like a small island. Tell us about your father in that way.
Oh, well, so my father was he in the islands. He was really known for construction. He was a carpenter. He was a framer. Um, um, he was a mason, and so and his work ethic was unparalleled. I mean, he's probably he is the reason why you know I strive to I think me and most of all my siblings, we always try to do things um, to the best of our abilities
Yeah.
because of who he was. He was just a person that a lot of people. He was a great teacher. He taught many people, and his whole goal was to like, hey, if I can help, uh, you know, these guys, they can ultimately help, their
Yeah.
families, and so he was always willing to kind of give of his craft, and
Mm.
so um, he came to the States, and when he came to the States, he didn't know English. None, I mean, just like a lot of the migration stories that we know of, but uh, but because of his work ethic and because of his craftsmanship, right, he was really able to make a dent in at work to be able to. I think within 8 months, he brought my mom and my 6 siblings and us all to America, right? But he was a type of person that when he worked, he gave it his all. And I know we hear that a lot, but I mean, he literally did. Like when he did a job, he wanted to make sure he wanted to make sure that it had his name on it, and so he went the extra mile. And I always remember him telling me, "Go, son, you any job you do, you have to always go the extra mile, right?" It wasn't like, oh, let's find if it happens, it happens. Maybe I can
Yeah.
do something extra. No, he always looked for a way to like put a stamp on that.
Give us an example of that.
Just so one example is just early on, as I started to take on my own construction and jobs and contracting, he would show up to the job site, and he would sit, kind of hang out with us. And I did uh, I was a roofing contractor when I first started. I did a lot of roofs, and so but one of my first roofing jobs, he would come on and he would say, "Oh, Dad," he goes, "Son, that's gonna be, this is gonna be a beautiful job when it's all done, right?" And I said, "Oh yeah, Dad, it's absolutely right." And he was like, "Yeah, 'cause when you're, after you kind of, change all the shingles on top, then you go back and you're gonna change all those the fascia boards that go all the way around the eaves that are underneath that are damaged, right? You're gonna and then you're gonna put a fresh coat of paint on it." Which is like a whole different, like that's like another job, like
Yeah.
I didn't bid the job for that. And I said to him, I said, "Dad, I didn't bid the job for
Wow.
I only bid to change the roof." And he goes, "Well, then you got to do it anyways, right?
Yeah.
Because that's part of it. It's all connected." And so I had to like learn early, like, hey, when I do something, if I'm gonna bid something or I'm gonna do a job, I can't look at it as kind of like just like, well, just go in and kind of
Do
piece
what
it,
you need to do and then leave,
and
right?
then leave, right? Because that's what the contract said. Now the contract was for him was do the whole thing right, so that when you walk away and people come later or anyone, right, they'll see that okay, that was done by
Yeah.
my son, or that was done by some
That's such a Samoan thing, having pride in what you're
right.
doing and going above and beyond.
Yeah, and then that's different, right? So like
Yeah.
when you get into like as a general contractor, right, your job is really in contracts,
Yeah.
right? So whatever your contracts says and stipulates, right, that's what you're going to do, and that's what the other party is going to hold you to, right? um Dad was different, and so when we did jobs, we did remodeling jobs or building homes, right? It was it was everything, right? We went all the way. And so
That's amazing. It reminds me of my grandparents because they're exactly similar in that way, that they want us to always to go above and beyond for people, whether
right.
it's our family, whether it's our community. I'm also interested in your shift from construction to dentistry. Tell us about that. What made you want to make that shift?
So yeah, absolutely. So growing up, like I said, I was the one, like, I was the help, right, to my brothers and my dad on the job sites. And so I was, my mother always told me, hey, I want a doctor in the family. And so you take that on. And so early on I was like, okay, well, I gotta, like, that I'm here. All I knew was construction. That's all we did. But in the back of my mind, I always had, like, oh, I want to, be a doctor. So fast forward, I was running at the time when I think I was like 2021. I was now running, our family business, and I had a toothache, and I went at that time. I didn't have like a dental insurance. And so I went into the clinic, and I wanted to get my tooth fixed. And then that's when I found, like, oh man, it was pretty expensive,
Yeah.
right, to save the tooth. And at that time I just married my wife, and I went home and I said, hey, Steph, like, yeah, it's gonna cost me, like $4,000 just to save one tooth. I'm gonna get it taken out, because he just didn't have time to do it. And I remember my wife looking at me like, no, 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 no. I married you with teeth. You're gonna keep your teeth,
Yeah.
right? And so, and I went in, and I, I said, okay, we'll go ahead and we'll save the tooth, right? And then that experience for me kind of just made me realize, like, man, what are my brothers doing, who were all working construction, and we didn't have, dental insurance? What were my cousins doing, who were all, like, we have so many family members working? And I understood, like, none of us had dental insurance, right, or health insurance. And so, and then I started to ask the question, well, what are we doing? What do you do when you have a toothache? How are you taking care of that, right? um and I remember guys just saying, nah, man, I just wait till I pull it out,
Yeah.
right? Or I'll go to the emergency room and they'll pull it out for me. But,
Yeah.
like,
I will say this happens in New Zealand as well. It's very,
right?
because dentistry in New Zealand is very expensive too.
Yeah. Yeah. So so it wasn't, I don't know why I didn't pay attention to that. But maybe it was because I wasn't at the time, I also had, I was working for the county, like, I had small jobs where I was working while I was going to school. And so I had dental insurance there, and I didn't think too much of it. But then when I went back, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, you got to pay a lot of money for this.
Yeah.
So then I started to ask the question, okay, well, I was like, well, what do you do as a dentist? How do you become a dentist? And so my initial journey was really to, like, hey, open up awareness for, when I looked into it, there were no, like, at the time, at least I didn't know of any Samoan, Polynesian dentists here in the United States. But besides that fact, I mean, I wanted to do something that I can give back to my own family, right?
Yeah,
I wasn't looking at, like, the whole, okay, I'm gonna save,
yeah.
save it. I just want to do something that way. If I can just do the work for my family, then I was happy, right?
Yeah.
And then in my community, because, I grew up in a Samoan ward, right? And so that was the goal, right? When I found that out, oh, this can be this is a good profession.
Yeah.
It's needed, and then I can make an impact. It kind of made it, and then it, I think my mom thought at the time was like, maybe I'll become a medical doctor. Well, then, but I became, a tooth doctor, right? So a dentist. So that kind of helped me push me into the field.
Nice. And I mean, now you have multiple dental centers, which is amazing. And what I found really inspirational is that you train people to get into this, specific people as well. And you also make your own prosthetics on site. Tell us about kind of like the challenges you face in your business from when you first started to where you are now.
So when I got into dentistry, I thought I was going to be like just that, like a regular. All I thought was, oh, I'll just become a dentist, right? I'll do general dentistry. I'll, like, do fillings and stuff of that sort. But what I found is that as I got into it, I started to realize, like, a lot of our people at the time that needed dentistry, were missing multiple teeth, and actually they were suffering from periodontal disease, which is disease of the gums, and to where it starts to eat away at the bone, right? And then their teeth become loose. So a lot of our people needed they needed prosthetics, they needed dentures, right? And when I was in dental school, I found out that dentures were not fun. They were hard. They were really they just weren't very functional. You used them because that's all you had. But I wanted to do, like, okay, if I want to do something, maybe it's my construction background. Like, I felt like I want something more functional, right? Something that is more stable, has more stability, and that's kind of where I found like dental implants. And at the time, dental implants weren't really taught in like dental school, right? It was something that was mainly for it. Honestly, the history of dental implants is it was kind of a select group of surgeons here in in America that got access to like an orthopedic surgeon that came from England,
Yeah.
right, and taught them. And so it was only really available to like the rich, right, people that had means to do it. And so when I found that out, I was like, man, but if I can put implants with dentures, that would really be functional and really would help, our people, or just, the population of people that, that's all they had. But adding those implants into it really made a difference, right, in their lives, and it's kind of securing things and confidence.
Yes.
Right. And so I dedicated myself to just understanding
Amazing.
the implant side of it, to where we're dental implant centers. And so you talk about training, because it's you don't have uh, many guys doing this. Well, we have another Samoan doctor, Dr. Ace Almolongo, right? And he was practicing in Oklahoma. And then when he found out about what we were doing, he was like, no, I want to be part of that. And so now he's here and we're working together, and he's learning, kind of how this whole system works. Now he's super talented. And so, but now he sees it on his side, like implants, not just to general population, but like to our population, to our people, is very important. And it really helps bring back confidence, and it's like a, a really staggering way, right? And so and then we have clinics. So in our clinic we have a laboratory side, so I deal with all mainly the surgery side and kind of overseeing the process. But then my brothers also work in they are the ones that that kind of design. They design the smile, and they craft it and they make it, and and it's all made in house, right? And so yeah.
I love how like this is a family oriented business. It's so refreshing for me, especially I come from a family business myself. So meeting other business owners who have family working for them or working with them,
Right.
we can relate to different experiences and all of that. So what are kind of like the Samoan values you've incorporated into this business, and you've made sure that this is how I want to do things?
Well, I family is, I grew up just working with family, and it's something I enjoy, right? And at the end of it, when you're starting something like new, right, um you kind of have to have that vision, and then and your biggest supporters, people that you want around you, are people that are always going to be there, right? And that's what I find, like, that was super helpful, at least for me, and is that, having my family here. When we first started, it was um,
They
we
say,
didn't.
never do business with family. Do you agree with that?
Um, yeah, no,
What are
well,
your thoughts on that?
listen,
Actually,
it's not a, family. Um, family is, I mean, they'll be there for you. And so for my experience, to be honest, my experience is
It's been
I,
good.
it's been good.
Mm.
It's been fortunate, but that's family, right? Sometimes family, we are most of the time we're on a good, everyone's doing fine, but there's always those hiccups where they go up and down. But that's what, if you can't deal with it, who if you're not willing to deal with it or tolerate your your
Yeah.
people that you love, uh, it's
Mm.
harder to do it. But it's a different business plan, right? But we also have like my my brother-in-law Tom. He's is from my wife's side, right? But we brought his skills and stuff in to help us help on this side of the business. And um and then when my brothers, they're more on the hand side of things. So there's different skills here, right? There's that we get to incorporate. And so, and it is fun. It's fun to know that, like, in business there's a lot of hard times, you know
Mm.
but when you overcome certain milestones and
Yeah.
you overcome these
Mhm.
thresholds and stuff, it's really nice to celebrate it with family, right?
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely. So what's kind of like your vision for your dental center? Maybe in the like next 10, 20 years.
so my vision is, my long-term vision is to have the ability. So the one thing that we are is to have the ability to, like, make dental implants more accessible,
Mm.
right? To just not just the general public, but like also to our people, right? Implants still, it's still very costly, right? It's very costly. The materials that go into it, the process of all of it that we, so it's still costly. But my hope is that uh, in 5 and hopefully in the near future, that we're at a point to where now we have systems and processes that we can now roll out and make it more easier, so it can be more systematic, so that people can do this at a more affordable
Yeah. Mm.
price range. And uh, you say, well, there are places that do this at more affordable.
Mm.
Well, but the expression of, you kind of pay what you get what you pay for, that's very true in implant dentistry,
Mm.
because so many there's a lot of people that's getting into it, and so people will invest their money to find
Mm.
out that they have to, like, get this work redone.
Yeah.
And that has become a big part of our business, our practice, is that we have to redo a lot of work that that's not done properly, right?
Mm.
And
Mm.
so that's kind of why it's like you can't just bring it all the way down and say, let me make it affordable, because you still need very skilled people
Yeah.
around you. You need a team
Mm.
that's talented to make
Mm.
sure that these things, our goal with our prosthetics, when we do full mouth prosthetics, is that these things last you 20-25 plus years, right?
Yeah.
We can't say something's going to last you forever, right?
Mm.
No one can guarantee that. But our hope is that when we do this job, and we give this service, that it's going to be a service that this person can take and actually use um, for many, many years, be functional, right?
Mm.
And so,
Mm. Thank you for explaining like the details of the business. I wanted to go back to service and the story you told me about your father and going above and beyond. How have you gone above and beyond in your business for your community?
um, so well, I can listen. I mean, these are uh, I I'm in a position to where you know we can make the call. To there's we get we'll get people that will come in, and from family members or from the community or the Polynesian community will actually, hey, can you help out this case? And absolutely,
Mm.
that's kind of where we can we you know we can take it and make it feasible for them to
Mm.
do it, right? And so but my goal is not to be the Samoan dentist or implant specialist for every Polynesian person,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I definitely want to be um, there for when for the ones that really need this service. And when we talk about service, I guess we can go back. There's a difference between just like single implants and then kind of what we do is more of a full mouth case, right? Uh, these are big surgeries, right? It takes a lot of coordination between the surgery team, prosthetic teams, anesthetic teams, right? Or we have nurse anesthetists that are also involved. So there's a whole process that will take someone that's really missing all their teeth, that's really kind of starting to suffer from, like, not having functionality anymore. And so it's a bigger case. So when we take on these cases, there's so many people involved, and I feel like I've been very proud of, like, the work that we've done, not just within our family, but also just like within the community of, like, people that would not ever have access to this, if we weren't giving it, or if we weren't performing it. And so the other side of it is that we are trying to get more people into the dental field, right? We have Dr. Ace Awolong. I have nothing to do with him getting into the field, but now that he's in the field and we know each other, we get to now work together to hopefully that as we can bring on younger generations to expose them, because when you hear about medicine here in the States, most people, they tell you, oh, like my mom said, hey, become a doctor. You're just a medical doctor. No one talks about become a dentist, become a teeth, be specialized in teeth. And so hopefully we can open that field up. And so we do a lot of sponsorships with scholarships for our Samoan community. Not only just, but like in California, through Los Angeles area where it's highly populated, also in Utah, where we have a lot of Polynesian. So we support all, when higher education, and to try to get more people to come into our field and kind of look into it, not just as a doctor, but also as technicians, hygienists, dental hygienists. And that's something that people never talked about. You see, like, nurses, but a dental hygienist, and we have a Samoan dental hygienist, and we also have Samoan doctors, right? And it's such a great field. It's such a great field, especially it has a good compensation rate, but it also has a good work-life balance schedule, right? And so
That's awesome. You guys have done so much for the community, and that's inspiring for me as well. What is your encouragement for youth who maybe want to get into dentistry or have a dream and they're kind of stuck and they scared to make that first step? What is your encouragement for them?
my so what I tell a lot of young people is that you got to go to school, right? Go to school. If you know you want to do something and you're young and you're in, like, high school, right? You can go shadow, right? You shadow, and then that's one thing. Like, um, if you're in New Zealand or Australia, right? Just calling, like, someone up, and say, hey, can I? And that's what I had to do, was, like, we had to call someone, hey, can I just come shadow you? Can I watch you? And then kind of see the process of it, right? But the biggest thing is, you got to you got to do your undergrad, get into college, and do all your prereqs and stuff. You got to get those done. You got to take care. That's the first line of business, right? You take care of that, right? Just focus on the undergrad, and then after you're done with that, then it opens up the door. You go into, whether it's dentistry or medicine, um, but you have to do those first 4 years, right? So rather than just sitting back and thinking about it, well, go get the education and finish the college. You have to do it anyways. So do it, and then you can kind of explore it. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Educate,
Right?
right?
Right.
Prioritize your education. We have a group of they're called the Polynesian Panthers in New Zealand,
Hmm.
and they stood up against a lot of racism
Hmm.
back in the 80s when the dawn raids were happening. I'm not sure if you've heard of the dawn raids, but police were ordered to go into Pacific Island people's home and deport them back when they went in with guns and dogs.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was really bad. And so a group of youth, they were called the Polynesian Panthers. There were about 6 of them. Their whole thing is educate to liberate. And so now these people are in their 70s
Oh,
and
wow.
they're still going around sharing that same message.
Nice.
Educate
Nice.
to liberate.
Nice.
Which I'm really happy because I'm really close with them too. So hearing this again kind of reminded me back of people at home. So I think that's very important as well to prioritize education. But thank you so much, Dr. Siona Motufau, for joining us on Breaking Waves.
No problem.
And especially for sharing with us and trusting us with your story. Stories are very valuable and to Pacific communities, especially Samoans. That's how we pass down our history and our lineage, not our knowledge to everyone. But thank you for joining us today on Breaking Waves. Would you have any final words?
I think I one of the biggest things for me is like you can I have this saying, or I've heard it, and it's a bad plan executed at like 60% is better than a perfect plan executed at 0%, right? And I probably butchered that, but I mean, the reality is you got to get out and do it, right? Get out and do it. If you know you want to be in medicine, whether it be a doctor, a surgeon, whatever it is, right? That first step is college, right? Get enrolled, get registered, and just start. I started at junior colleges, and then I made my way up to the universities, right? But that you got to, so just get it started, right? And and then you can figure it, and then you'll get to a point where, okay, now the doors have now opened, right? And now you can kind of just choose at that point. But just get started, right?
Yes.
Get started.
Get started, guys. Perfection is a lie.
Make
Mistakes.
Make mistakes.
And recover from them really quickly. The more mistakes, I'm sure you'll get better at that part. Thank you for everyone for joining us. We love you all from the United States of America.
Thank you.